With my YouTube videos, probably the question that I get asked the most is what can I do if I'm married to or dating somebody who's a victim of emotional incest? Let's explore that today. Hang on. Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and it's interesting how people are becoming more aware of it. So either they're married to somebody who's a victim of emotional incest and they're wondering, how do I cope? Or they're beginning to date somebody and they're noticing those red flags. Well, how the heck do you deal with somebody who's a victim of emotional incest? And I get this one myself pretty well because I myself am a victim of emotional incest. The way I was raised and being emotionally smothered, it permeated my outlook of life, and then it conditioned me on many levels as to how I view relationships and what I was willing or not willing to do in terms of getting to know somebody in an intimate way. So if you're a beginner to this, I have many videos on emotional incest. You can check them out on my YouTube channel. But I'll just give you a quick rundown that it's basically when somebody is emotionally smothered or taken over by one of their parents. It's done by that parent to benefit the parent. They don't really care about the growth or the identity development of their child. They're focused on their needs, and it's usually because there's a deep source of unhappiness in them. And so they believe if they can turn either their daughter or their son into their little mini husband or mini wife, they're going to feel more satisfied. And of course, that can destroy a child's life. Don't fight their battles for them. So whether you're in a marriage or whether you're just starting to date somebody, if you're noticing these red flags, do not jump in there and try to solve or fix everything, because part of being a victim of emotional incest means they didn't grow up with the courage or strength or ability or the belief that they can fight their own battles. So became really good at kind of hiding and turning into a chameleon and doing anything they can to be a people pleaser, which in a way is a way to hide. Because if you have to butt up to somebody's opinions or have your own healthy boundaries where there's a real you there, that's going to threaten and scare somebody who's a victim of emotional incest, because we haven't had practice in doing that growing up. We had to be there as sort of almost the servant to the parent, and that made us feel as though we don't have much of a voice or certainly not a right to be there. And if you grow up with this feeling, then when it comes to things you have to work out or take on or battles you have to fight, you tend to shy away or even run away. So if you're dating somebody who is clear that they've been a victim of emotional incest, then you don't want to step in and just take over this for them. They have to learn to handle themselves and learn to stand on their own 2 feet. This will not only benefit them in the long run, but of course it's going to help you in terms of being coupled with them. Because part of a healthy relationship means that both of you kind of have an equal opinion and you're sharing in an equal way a lot of your feelings and coming together in an equal way and making compromises, right? That's what you want in a healthy relationship. And so if you're doing things for them, if you're fighting their battles, they're not going to be able to possibly do some more work on themselves, which means they have to tolerate the uncomfortable feelings of what it means to have a them there. A lot of emotional incest victims run away from having a them there because that means that they have to stand for something and be something and come to terms with what they're all about and stand up to people like the emotionally smothering mother or father who took away their boundaries. So number 2 is give them time to talk, to find the words, to find their voice, and to express themselves. See, you have to realize that they were robbed of that growing up. Many have not found their voice and sometimes never find their voice in life, or what's typical is usually in their late 20s and 30s when people start therapy is a common time. Some victims may go in for some help with this, but it may still never happen in someone's life. So if you're with somebody like that, give them the opportunity to grapple with their feelings, to stutter all over the place, to not be sure about it, but that's how they can find their voice, and you want to allow them to bring that voice into the relationship. But when that has been wiped away by one of your own parents, then you grow up thinking you're not entitled to have a voice, and therefore you haven't worked on finding your feelings and certainly not expressing them. So if you're in a relationship with them, just zip it, be patient, wait for them to figure out what their feelings are. Do not step in and try to tell them what their feelings are, because that's only going to make it worse probably. And let them practice what they were never allowed to practice as a kid. So now in a relationship, give them time and space to do that. And number 3 follows with this a bit in terms of you don't want to pressure them into doing things, which includes trying to talk them into things because you know a better way. And maybe because you can sense that they're not good with voicing their opinion and sometimes not standing up for themselves, you may feel as their partner that you're going to just go ahead and do that. Well, you may get away with it, but you're certainly not helping them grow, and therefore you may be hurting your relationship or marriage in the long run. Because once again, to have a healthy relationship, both partners need to be somewhat equal. Both partners need to have a voice. So the more you jump in there and say, this is where we're going on vacation, or I don't like what you're wearing, I think you should wear this tonight. Or let me just do the checkbook and the finances. You don't seem to be good at it. I'm just going to take care of all that. Or you don't want that job. No, that's not good for you. Here, I'm going to help you look for a job. We're going to find something that's better suited for you. Oh no, you don't like that kind of food. I want to go to this restaurant. How on earth could you say you like that food? That's horrible. That food is terrible. And so you catch yourself trying to manipulate their life. Well, if somebody's truly a victim of emotional incest and they haven't done any work on themselves, they're probably going to let you, because if they haven't worked through all the childhood trauma, they're not in touch with it yet, perhaps, and so they're going to let their significant other just do that. But the problem with that is over time that's going to build resentment. Because sooner or later, usually for any victim, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 30 years later, they begin to feel and realize that they've been taken advantage of. Not only in their childhood by the parent, but now by you, their significant other. They're not dumb. They get on some level that this is a continuing pattern from you, the one who's taking them over. So it's kind of continuing, right? It's kind of continuing from a parent who took them over, and now here you are, the significant other, also taking them over. Well, at first they may go along with it, perhaps for years, but at some point, hopefully they'll do some work on themselves and realize that it's not healthy and it's not appropriate, and they need to have some healthy boundaries with people, and they need to be in touch with their wants and desires are. Then at that point, they may be standing up to you, and then things can get really ugly because you took advantage of them for many years. Number 4 is know that they may never change and may always prefer and listen to the parent and be dominated by the parent, especially if the parent is still alive. So there's different ways people can go with this. I know for myself, I ran to the other side of the country. I moved 3,000 miles away almost to get away from the perpetrating parent, who was my mother. But still, her voice was there, the voice was there, the feelings were there, and it took a lot of work and a lot of therapy to overcome that in my life. So the point meaning is that they can be away from the parent, or the parent could be dead, but it still has an enormous influence on them. They still may not be willing to change, in which case they're always answering to the perpetrating parent, the father or the mother, even though the parent may be dead and gone. Or what can be even worse is that the parent is still alive, still nearby in close proximity, and they want to go see the parent a lot. They feel that they still have to please and accommodate the parent. They still feel an incredible need in their 30s or 40s or 50s to be there and solve all the adult problems for the parent who conditioned them to do that when they were younger. So for you who are dating somebody like that or married to somebody like that, know that this may not change. It's simply a reality check. The person who's the victim of emotional incest needs to come to terms with this, and then they need to have the courage to call a therapist and do some work on this of their own. They need to confront it. You can't confront it for them. So if you're with somebody who's not willing to confront it, chances are things are not going to change, which means then you need to decide if that's somebody you can be with. That you need to decide if that's somebody you can be married to the rest of your life, or somebody you want to continue dating, because they may not change. A lot of victims of emotional incest stay this way their entire life. Which leads to number 5, my last point, is you have to discover, for any of you out there who are with victims of emotional incest, why are you attracted to them in the first place? Kind of goes deep here, right? Makes you think a little bit. And this is where it's more about you and why you chose to be with somebody like this, assuming the victim of emotional incest is still bowing down to their mother or father symbolically in their life. Then what made that appealing to you? Do you want to be in control somehow in the relationship? Are you a little narcissistic perhaps, and you want to be more in the power position in the relationship? Do you feel that being with a victim, that you can somehow manipulate them more, that you can somehow sort of get in there and have them do what you want them to do? So you need to ask yourself that if you're with somebody who is a victim of emotional incest. And the reason that it's so important to understand this is because of point number 4, which I just mentioned before this, is that they may not change. So sometimes what happens is what draws us to somebody those first 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe longer, eventually begins to erode. And then the things that drew us together initially begin to be the very things that cause us a lot of annoyance later on. So the very reasons that you were drawn to this person may be the things later in life that you say, get me the heck out of here, I want a divorce. So it can be very complicated. There's many levels to this. It takes 2 people to do the relationship dance, right? It's not just 1, it's 2. But for victims out there who are watching this, know that you can work on yourself and reclaim yourself and get in touch with your feelings and who you are and feel good about yourself. There, I encourage you to get some professional help, because otherwise this may continue your whole life. So please leave me some comments below. I'd love to hear if you're a victim of emotional incest, or maybe dating somebody who's going through these signs and symptoms. Are you noticing red flags? If you are, why are you staying? Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.